Hi, my friends. This is my last video on our topic of experiencing the extraordinary in the ordinary. But in the last two videos, I've taken as my starting point the resurrection of Jesus. But in the last one, I moved from the resurrection of Jesus, following the lead of the New Testament writers, to God creating all things and showing how the early church realized it could only be the creative power of God, the power of God that creates the cosmos, that could raise Jesus from the dead. And therefore, he is the fulfillment of God's hope for creation. He is the embodiment of God's creative power, and through him we have access to that. Well, this time I want to now start with God creating all things, but I want to start first of all with the ordinary, like I did in the first video. And what's most ordinary is what's around me right now. As you can see, I'm standing in my yard, and there are trees behind me. There are bushes. I'm standing on the grass. I'm in the kind of humid day that we're having here in Washington, D.C. It's partly sunny out, and I'm here. And so this is, in some ways, just an ordinary day in June in Washington, D.C. And ordinary things are all around me. And I can hear birds. I can see a squirrel. I can hear my neighbors over here. My house is right here. And these are all kinds of so-called ordinary things. But I want to point out to you what's extraordinary about them. What's most extraordinary is that they exist. What's stunningly extraordinary is that I exist, that I'm actually here. You see, there's nothing about me as a white man, as a human being with skin and muscle and bones and a brain and a nervous system and blood pouring through my veins and a limbic system. There's nothing about that says I have to exist. I was born in 1960. In 1955, I could not have willed myself into existence because I didn't exist. And so there's nothing about any of us that says we have to exist. And there's nothing about our makeup, our biochemical, physical makeup that you can point to and say, oh, that's what caused McCormick to exist. No, and when you look around the bushes and trees behind me, they exist, but there's nothing that says they have to exist. And who knows? Maybe in 100 years they won't. And if you went back maybe 100 years ago, none of these bushes existed because this house was built in 1957. And so it wasn't until owners of the house put those plants in that they existed. And so my point is that, drawing on the genius of Thomas Aquinas, the great theologian, that all things in nature have a nature. There is that which makes them to be what they are. And we can analyze them biologically and chemically. We can analyze them in terms of physics and their atomic makeup. And then there's the fact that they exist. And those things are distinct because there's nothing in the nature of any creature, any of these bushes or these trees, the sun, the sky, me, the grass, the ground, the electric magnetic fields, the gravitational fields, our atmosphere. There's nothing in any creature that says it has to exist, nor can we cause our own existence. If I was to have a heart attack right now and die, I could not cause myself to come back to life. There was a colossal oak tree here a number of years ago. You can see the stump that we had cut down. And there's nothing in the makeup of that stump that can cause itself to exist. But these things do exist. So how, Thomas Aquinas says, how can these things exist if there's nothing in the nature of any creature that causes its own existence? And Aquinas realizes that since they do exist and there's nothing in them that can cause their own existence, they must be tapping into something else that has existence. And it's kind of like the iPhone that I'm using to record this. There's nothing about the makeup of an iPhone that contains electricity. You have the plastic, the rubber, the glass, you have the components inside the iPhone, but no iPhone comes with electricity. The only reason this iPhone is working is because I have plugged the iPhone in and it has tapped into the electrical grid, which is tapping into the electromagnetic field. And so just as the iPhone can only function because it is tapping into this system of electricity which is outside of it, none of this, and myself and you, none of this can exist except that we have tapped into, in a sense, the source of existence itself, sheer utter existence itself, which has generously shared with us and all of these things at every single second existence. And we call the source of sheer existence itself God. God is not a thing, an idea, a feeling, a guy in the sky. No, God is the infinite field of existence who is infinitely conscious and infinitely generous and is constantly sharing all things with us. And that makes everyday experience extraordinary. And sometimes you get in touch with this when somebody dies and all of a sudden they're not there anymore. I remember my mother died a year ago and all of a sudden I can't drive up to New Jersey and see her. And it gives me a glimpse into the extraordinary fact that she did exist. I feel this way in the fall when all of a sudden the leaves are gone. It's one of those days where it's windy and all of a sudden the leaves are all gone and it's just barren trees. And they did exist and now they haven't. Or we get an experience of this in the spring when suddenly these bushes show up, flowers show up, leaves show up. And you get a sense of the stunning nature that things exist. I remember when my oldest was born, and all of a sudden the nurse hands me this child. This child exists. A year ago, this child didn't exist. And so those are little glimpses that kind of break through the dullness of our conscience to realize the extraordinary nature that anything exists. And so I encourage you to use this for your prayer and reflect back on your life, on some of the good things that God has brought into your existence. Your parents, your friends, your teachers, perhaps your job or career, the fact that you're alive for another day. I want to conclude this video with one more dimension of the extraordinary nature of everyday life, and it's the fact that we are conscious of anything. Think about this right now. I am conscious of myself. I'm conscious of the camera. I'm conscious of how hot and humid it is out. If you're watching this, you are conscious of what you're seeing through this YouTube channel. And to be conscious is to have a kind of a field of awareness. You just every morning wake up and you're aware of yourself and your body, and maybe you're sleepy or groggy or tired, but you're aware of yourself. You're aware of the room as your eyes open up, and maybe you hear your spouse, your kids, or you hear the alarm or your birds. You have this awareness. It just comes to you. The other day I'm driving on the Beltway and I'm thinking about this and like, yeah, thank God I'm aware of the cars in front of me and behind me. I'm aware of the lights. Consciousness as an awareness of our world just comes to us. It's an absolute gift, and it is foundational for every relationship to ourselves and to others and to the world. And there's nothing about this body or the chemical makeup of our brains, the electrical signals that are flying through the neurons and axons that can cause consciousness. To be conscious, to have feelings, to be aware of yourself, to be aware of others, to have memories and desires and thoughts and intention. All of this cannot be caused simply by electrical chemical signals in your brain. Electrical chemical signals do not give rise to thought or consciousness. Scientists don't know why. Neuroscientists don't know why we're conscious. I want to suggest why we are. Just as I said earlier that we can't cause our own existence, And the only reason we exist is because we've tapped into existence itself. The same is true for us. There's nothing about our biochemical, neurological makeup that can cause consciousness, but we are conscious. And that's because infinite consciousness, God, who is infinitely conscious, has shared consciousness with us because God desires to be in a relationship with us and desires for us to be in a relationship with each other. This is what makes everyday life extraordinary. Give thanks to God every day that you exist, that you're alive, that all this is here, and that you're conscious of it. It is an act of love that enables you to love others. See you in the next video.